Managing wealth is complex, but making decisions shouldn't be.
We live in a very confused world, and there are too many moving parts.
Why some portfolios survive for generations.
As a family office, you need to have an anchor.
Across families that you think doesn't get attention.
Tax.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Family Office Decision Series by Transformance Forums, and I am your host Kanishka Karkera. Today I am joined by Ms. Yamini Sood, Head Institutional and Family Office at DSP Asset Managers. Welcome Ms. Yamini.
Hi, Kanishka.
So Ms. Yamini, tell me something about you and your journey at DSP Asset Managers.
So, Kanishka, I've been in the industry for more than 2 decades. Well, to be precise, 23 years. And my career has evolved across these decades, talking to institutional treasuries and corporate treasuries, banks, financial institutions, and in the last decade, a lot of family offices as well. I started my career as an advisor for funds, and then I moved to asset management. And I've been with DSP for almost 15 years now. We manage more than 220,000 crores of domestic assets. And that's been my journey. I also consider myself a fanatic of personal finance, a topic which is very close to my heart.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Yamini. So without further ado, let's dive into why some portfolios survive for generations. So Yamini, if I were to talk about principles, what are the first principles from an investment standpoint that families should pay attention to? What are your thoughts?
No, that's a very good question, Kanishka. And I definitely feel that the most important thing for a family is to first understand what they stand for. So, if you talk about first principles thinking and if you have to build your portfolio based on that, I think the cornerstone or the basic blueprint is extremely important. And by that, what I mean is what are the values that you stand for? What are the objectives which are important to you or that you intend to meet over the next multiple generations? And that is like a mecca, or that is like the holy grail of investment, because we live in a very confused world. We live in a world which is full of information, and there are too many moving parts. You need an anchor. As a family office, you need to have an anchor. Now, to elaborate on that, what I mean is, let's take an example. So when I talk about objectives, like what are my objectives? Do I need a part of this money for charity? Have I earmarked it? What is that percentage that I need for charity? How will I manage that bit? There are kids and kin in the family. So succession planning comes in. Different family members may have different requirements. Some are in some stage of their life. Say somebody is, patriarch is in a late 70s, late 60s, late retirement stage. You have young children. So their needs will be very different. Their investment objectives will be very different. Their risk appetites will be different. So when you talk about building a family portfolio, you've got to pay attention to all of this different pillars of investing. Those are the objectives. You need to understand that. So it's also important to know what values you stand for. Where would you go and where you would not go when it comes to investments? It's very important to define that. Now, that's one of the first principles that you can base your investment portfolio on. It's also important to understand what are the liquidity needs, what are the liquidity requirements, because again, that will be very different for different family members. And it also depends on, what is your underlying business, whether it's a family office which has completely had a liquidity event and is now only managing family money, or do you have an underlying operating business which keeps throwing cash flow in forms of dividends to the promoters. So it is important to keep these things in mind when you are building your portfolio. Another very important point, according to me, is also diversification. I've seen a lot of families, they feel that they are diversified, but true diversification actually lies not just in terms of having different product baskets. It's also about having different asset classes. So some may say that, I'm invested in a PMS, so I'm completely diversified, or I'm invested in equity mutual fund. But at the end of the day, you're still carrying the systemic risk of the market. But apart from domestic, do you have geographical diversification as well? Do you have exposure to commodities as well? Do you have exposure to fixed income? Do you have exposure to REITs? So it is very important to pay attention whether your portfolio is truly diversified or is it a concentrated portfolio. I think these are some of the first principles which are very critical.
So I highly appreciate your insights. Bridging to the next question, according to you, what changes are you seeing in how next generation family members approach investments? What is your take on that?
So, been in the industry, like I mentioned, for more than 2 decades, in the last 5 to 6 years, uh, we've seen this major acceleration towards most families wanting to set up their family office. And that's a very welcome change for us as somebody who manages assets for investors. But yeah, that's quite different from what we've seen in the last couple of decades. India was not a very developed market, and your mutual fund penetration was extremely low. She has improved now. Uh, what we've seen is there are a lot of businesses and business owners in their underlying business might be generating, say, a ROE of 18%, 20%, 21%, all over. We don't know that. And equity markets have done very well, right? Um, so there is this lure of, okay, fine, if I have a brick and mortar business and I have to put in a lot of energy, effort, managing businesses is a very tough thing to do. Uh, and simultaneously, when you see, without doing anything, I just open a family office. And yes, you have some resources and you deploy money, you give capital to others. And outcomes have been fairly good for lesser effort. So yes, so what we this is a huge change that we've seen. That in fact we also know that one of the most respected business owners of our country made a statement that if the entire next gen is going to manage family offices, who's going to run businesses? Well, I have a very different take on that. But to come to your point, yes, this is a trend which has accelerated a lot. I feel a lot of young gen, next gen, is very happy managing money by allocating it to people. And in a way, it is not bad because you'll always have first gen and more of first gen entrepreneurs in such a case because capital will go to those who can actually grow the capital. And it's allocation of capital via a different vehicle and will create more first gen entrepreneurs. So that's very good for the country. But yes, that is definitely an accelerating trend where we've seen that more and more of family owners want to manage money. A lot of them are looking at investing in public markets, private markets, and they're very open to ideas, very welcoming to new ideas.
Interesting point that actually resonates a lot. Um, Moving on to my next question, Yamini. According to you, one pet peeve you have witnessed across families that you think doesn't get attention. What is your take?
I, without fail, I think that tax, it does not get enough attention from families as much as it's supposed to get. Um, I'll give you a small statistic. Assuming you're running a family office and the family office is worth 1,000 crores, and if you go back, like in the decade, and the markets benchmarks have given in the range of 13 odd percent, and we've seen inflation structurally come down. We've seen growth come down now. So let's look at a number of 10%. That markets for the next decade will give you 10%. Over the next 30 years, you will make a CAGR return of 10%. Now, if you start with 1,000 crores and if you let it compound patiently for the next 30 years, how much do you think this 1,000 crores will become? So that number comes to a little more than 17,000 crores, which means your money has multiplied more than 17 times. Now, that's a very ideal situation. Doesn't happen because we all love activity. And so let's look at a churn. So if you churn this portfolio, let's assume that there's a churn every 3 years and you're paying a tax. So while your tax rates are very high, but assuming you've done very fantastic tax planning, and let's assume a tax of 30%. How much do you think it becomes? The 1,000 crores in 30 years? it comes down to 8,000 crores.
8,000.
Yeah. So if you've not done anything, if you allow it to compound, that number is more than 17,000 crores. You churn the portfolio, it comes down to 8,000 crores. But that is also not a very realistic scenario because I'm assuming 100% churn. Let us cut down the churn to 30%. Say if 30% of your portfolio you've churned every 3 years, then what is the value of that portfolio at the end of 30 years? It'll be somewhere around 13,000 crores, a little more than 13,000 crores. So that has compounded 13 times. If you don't do anything, it has compounded more than 17 times. And mind you, this is very, very critical to understand. Patience and letting your money compound and not becoming a victim of paying too many taxes just because we love activity. So if you ask me, the biggest pet peeve is this: understanding tax implications on family portfolios, especially when you're managing it for multi-generation.
This brings us to an end of episode 4 that talks about why some portfolios survive for generations.
I really look forward to the Great Indian Family Office Summit and Awards in Delhi, subsequently in Mumbai.